Unity, Unreal, Godot, CryEngine, GameMaker, UPBG, Baby, GDevelop, Construct, Stride, Flax, and Cocos. As a game developer, there are many game engines you can choose when making a game. So between all these options, why would you choose Default? Hello everyone, it's Asata Games. I have been using Default for more than a year now. I started learning about it and I even share tutorials on it. So after a year, what I think about Default and if it is worth using or learning about, or is it better than other options you have? Now to understand if Default is worth it, we need to know what Default is. So what is Default? Default is the game engine for high performance cross platform games. So these two are the core focus of the engine. And if you want to try Default, there is no installation process. And it has everything you need to make games. It has a visual editor, code editor, scene editor, particle, style map, 2D and 3D support. And the Lua scripting is used. With Default, you can do the coding on the game engine and don't have to use external programs like VS Code. It is a truly cross-platform game engine. Windows, Linux, macOS, Android, iOS, HTML, Facebook games, Nintendo Switch, Steam, PS4, PS5, and so on. You can export to all these platforms for free. You don't have to pay for console support either. And it is a strong point of Default. The Default comes as a simple engine with only the base features you will need. Then you can use the asset portal and include the assets you will need for your game. And this approach ensures that your game will only have the features you will need, so your 2D game will not have high-end rendering, so the file size of the project will be smaller. You don't have to, but you can still use VS Code with Default if you like. On the asset store, you have many assets. You have tile support. If you don't like the built-in GUI, you can use Druid. If you want to use hacks, you can include hack support. There is the light and shadows example. It is a great example for 2.5D and 3D games. A star pathfinding if you need it on your game. If it is going to be multiplayer, include Nakama. And how much does it cost? This is an important topic. Many devs consider this as a core factor when deciding which game engine to use. That's why open source game engines have been gaining popularity lately, especially after the Unity disaster. Let's say you use Default and made a big hit, you developed the next Vampire Survivors, you made millions, shared your Default game on Steam, web platforms, mobile, and even consoles. Then you may be curious how much I have to pay to Default, and that is zero. You don't have to pay anything because Default is free. There is no upfront cost, no licensing, royalties, or runtime fee. It is free forever and this is protected by the objectives of Default Foundation. I will explain this. Since you don't have to pay anything to Default, of course supporting the tool that made it possible to develop that hit game is always appreciated, but legally you don't have to pay them. So is it open source? Well, yes, but actually no. There is one thing you cannot do with Default. That's why it is not open source. You cannot use Default to make a game engine and sell it. So this is like forking the engine and modifying it so it will be an RPG Maker like game engine. Then you try to sell it. That is the only thing you cannot do. What you can do is make a game with Default and sell it. That's totally fine. You don't have to pay anything. You can make a plugin, extension, or asset for Default and sell it. That's also fine. You can make moddable games, custom levels, etc. I have seen some discussions about this online. Some people were worried if I make a game where you can design custom levels, will this be considered as a game engine? And no, it will not. I have personally asked about this and Default team answered. I will show you that in a bit. You can make moddable games and sell it. That's also still fine. You don't have to pay them anything. You can make a game engine with Default and distribute it for free, and that's also fine. And I asked about this on the Default forum directly, and it is a long question. I asked in details, and the Default team answered genuinely. They didn't belittle my question or get angry about it. They were very clear about it. I will share this link on the comment section, so if you are curious, you can go and read it yourself. I will summarize it in a bit. 3 months after I have asked this question, I again wanted to make sure, so I asked one more time, and they again gave a quite detailed answer. They even gave legal reasons why they cannot actually make the default a paid engine. They are bound to the objectives of default foundation, and providing the engine for free is a core objective of the foundation. So in this case, unless you were planning making a game engine and sell it with default, you can consider this as an open source project like Godot or Baby. Alongside being free, cross-platform, and performance-oriented, file sizes are also a pride of Default engine. If you compare Default with Unity or Godot, you will see that default file sizes for Android, iOS, HTML, and Windows are at most 3 megabyte, and Default has the smallest file size. So even if you are making a game with Unity or Godot and you need a playable ad for your game, then you can still consider default as an option. That's because playable ads are supposed to be less than 5 megabyte in size, and starting with 8 or 9 will not make you any justice. You can still do it probably, but it is a lot of work. Why not use 1.40 megabyte instead of 8 or 9? On the channel, I have made some engine comparison videos on file sizes. You can watch that video for more information. So far, the information I have given is similar to the video I have shared at the beginning of 2025. At that time, the video was more of a research rather than experience. So from now on, I want to share my experiences with default and what I think about it. Does it have a feature? Should you use it? And so on. First, let's take a look at what has changed in 2025. In 2025, Default had 11 new releases. Default gets a new release every month. New releases this frequent may sound scary with other engines, because if you get a new update with Godot or Unity or Unreal and you update your project every month, then you will spend the rest of the month with fixing your game to match the new changes. But with default, that's not the case. Even if you update your game from one version to another, it is quite unlikely to encounter a problem. Even if there is a breaking change, they mention about it on the release, so you are informed beforehand. 3D has improved a lot compared to the last year. 3D is a lot better now, and I am sure by the end of 2026, default will get a lot better. Model instancing and GPU skinning is now a part of default. There is C# and TL support for scripting, and they have a new partnership with Poki. Poki is a website where you can share your web game and make some revenue. You can again watch the file size comparison video. On that video, I explain why web games may be a viable option for game developers to monetize their games. If you are curious about the current state of the 3D with default, I shared a default 3D community project showcase on my channel, and here are some screenshots from them. Even with the current version, you can make great games, but by the end of this year, this will be a lot simpler to achieve. So the feature of default is important, and what they are planning is listed here. They are always a performance first engine. So even if default gets 3D improvement, it will not be a bloated engine. They will still prioritize performance. They will improve 3D features and more quality of life improvements, because editor is missing some core features which may feel counterintuitive. So they are implementing them. They are expanding their global reach. Default is supporting KaiOS. KaiOS is the mobile operating system popular in India, and India is a large market. So if you want to access that market, you can use default. I think default can now be used with WeChat to share your game on Chinese market too. They plan to make it easier for beginners. They also plan to get Xbox support. There is one more thing that may be important in the future, and that is the AI effect. Probably most of you already know that because of AI data centers, the price of hardware is tripled or quadrupled for PC hardwares, RAM and GPU. While this is a bad thing overall for the gaming and game developers, I think this may help default to shine, because Unreal may be producing great graphics right now. If you open YouTube and type problems with Unreal games, you will see a lot of video that complains why games made with Unreal Engine are performing bad even with new hardware. So if the RAM prices goes up, people may have to return 8 or 16 gigabyte of RAM and weaker GPUs, and this will make things a lot easier for Unreal Engine devs and probably with other engines too. But since Default is a performance first engine, I think Default is likely to be the least affected engine by this change. And so even if this does not happen, which I hope will not, there are still many users gaining access to internet. They still have low-end devices, and Default can monopolize the new gaming community with its support for 3D while maintaining performance-first approach. My thoughts on Default after a year: is Default worth using? And the answer is yes. I think Default is worth it. Most people, when using a game engine, when choosing a game engine, looks at what it can provide you, can I make photorealistic games with it, and so on. What they don't realize is the engine also takes something from you. When the engine handles everything for you, you may lose some skills you have gained before. This doesn't have to happen, but it does generally. I believe using Default made me a better developer. I think default isn't a viable option for two cases. First one is you are a designer, maybe a 3D artist, and you want to make a 3D game, like a cozy game, and you are looking for game engines. Then default probably isn't the best option for you. Then you are better off with Unreal, since it handles quite a lot in 3D space for you, and maybe Construct or GDevelop for no coding approach. And the second case is if your goal is photorealistic games. If that's the case, again, Unreal is the option for you, or maybe Flex or Unity. So if your goal is photorealistic games, or you don't like coding and you want to focus on only the game design and basic game logic, then default isn't for you. Other than that, I don't think there is an important factor that makes default a not suitable game for you. You can do 2D, 3D games with it. Default is getting more popular too. For example, Man, I think, used Default to make a web version of the game, and there are also some other game studios considering Default for their new game. Okay, let's say you are convinced and you want to give Default a try and learn about it. So, how to learn Default? First, you have Default documentation. Their documentation is good. It explains the topics well enough, and there are also examples provided on the documentation. This is your first to go if you want to learn about it. Then again, Default created some tutorials and manuals for you, so you can follow them on the Default website. Again, there is the Unfolding Game Dev channel. The owner of this channel is Default's community manager. He has great tutorials, and he will be uploading more tutorials soon too. There are some tutorials made by Tactic Studios. They are 5 years old, I believe, but they are still relevant and you can easily use them. As Default is a stable engine, even if you take a game which is 5 years old and try to import it to the newest version of Default, you probably will encounter only small problems at most, and the game will work just fine. And of course, this channel, Asate Games, is another option. As I said, I not only use Default, but also share tutorials on it. On my channel, I have 39 tutorials right now. I will be sharing more. I have covered base topics like camera follow-up, sprite sheets, built-in tile map, and tile for tile maps. I also have full game creation tutorials. Flappy Bird clone, this is a 45-minute tutorial. A roguelike game, this one is 1.5 hours, and this is over 2 hours where I show how you can make a complete top-down shooter game. I have 3D tutorials too. Some of them are third-person controller, skybox, first-person controller, and importing large scenes. And inshallah, I will be sharing long 3D tutorials on Default too, like 3D FPS and other games. I also share the project files on my itch.io page, so if you are curious, you can download them and see how they work, or modify it as you need. And that's it. That's what I think about Default after using it more than a year. If you have any question about Default or about tutorials, you can ask on the comment section. If you like the video and interested in game development with Default, please like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.